you do a great job of explaining a mastermind. But for me, accountability is enhanced when you're in a mastermind group. It's why we do it. You've got a coach, but when you have to show up 5 other businesses you respect and say to them, this is what I'm going to achieve next month, and then report back in a month later and say, how have you gone with that? You just don't have that kind of level of support and feedback when you're running a small business. Like, there really is no one holding you accountable. Like, you can let yourself off the hook and it can get a bit lonely. And similarly, with when there's really challenging things going on, you've got a close group of people who really know and understand your situation and are there to just pour support into what it is that you're doing. And so I think that's really powerful.
Welcome to the Profitable Farmer Podcast, where we share stories and tips to help you run a better farming business and create your very own freedom farm. If you're looking to work smarter and not harder in your farm business, welcome. You're in the right place. G'day everyone. Already we start to wrap up 2024. It's amazing how quickly these years can arrive into the festive season, with harvest and haymaking and all of those constructs coming in early for so many. It is a busy period, but just as our team start to wind down and wrap up for Christmas and time with our friends and family, I thought it was great timing to grab our CEO at Farm Owners Academy, Sam Johnsson, just to stop and reflect on the year, the highlights, the challenges, some tips on how to navigate some of our realities, and some key tips that we've got, if you like, to help make sure you've got the right people around you to be making key decisions and start shaping your business models and your strategic plans for the year ahead. Always great to connect with Sam. Thank you for joining us, mate. How are you?
Going well, thanks, Hutch, and g'day everyone. I can't believe it's December already. It goes so fast, doesn't it? But it's been a really good year for a lot of people and a really challenging year for others. So keen to explore that with you today, Hutch.
Thanks, Sam. So just to kick off, what are some of the highlights that you reflect on for the FOA community and the FOA team? Could you just give our listeners a bit of a reflection on what you've seen our people achieve?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of our members, there's been some pretty significant growth in a lot of businesses over the last few years, and for some, this year's been a consolidation year as well, just sort of resetting and re-establishing things post some pretty significant growth. And I think one of the other things that's been really good is the market's kind of raised the stakes, Hutch. We've had interest rates are higher and commodity prices have come back a bit, and it's really forced people to look at their business models, and I can see a lot of people are much clearer on their business models this year and how to structure their businesses up to be really profitable into the future and enduring businesses, which has been a positive out of some challenging circumstances for many.
And just for our listeners who probably aren't tracking with us as members, Sam, how have they done that?
Yeah, so it starts by understanding, your current reality, and a lot of it is through the benchmarking that we do, Hutch. So understanding what your business is performing or how it's performing currently, and benchmarking is just a reflection of how well your business model performed in the season. But also realizing that we've only got probably 20 or 30 seasons as a farm owner, and this year we really focused on helping our members do forecasting their business model really well, and then benchmarking that forecast. So that's giving people a huge amount of confidence, just understanding the resilience of their business in different price scenarios and different seasonal conditions.
Sam, I had one of our members the other day challenging their business model in the heat of battle. So they're in the midst of an early harvest. They'd been frosted, navigating a really dry South Australian year. I think, almost a 1 in 100 dry period for many South Australian farmers. Is now the time to be doing it, or is now the time just to be getting it done and dusting yourself off and coming back to some of these bigger questions on the other side of the busy period?
It depends, I guess, what the burning platform is or what the requirement is. Some people might have finally got to a point where they realise they just need to do something about it, and now's the time. I think making any big decision on a low energy state, or, when you're just drained and absolutely buggered, is setting yourself up to have a suboptimal outcome. So I think always you want to go and kind of get some space from the busyness and to kind of refresh and reset. So probably after the break would be the best time if you think about any sweeping changes on your business model, but there's no reason why you can't start doing the work now and get some of that together. And I think the point you make is a good one. It might be for some people that there's nothing wrong with their business model. They're just having to deal with, and their strategy's fine. It's just that tactically they need to respond to what has been a challenging season for some and some lower prices.
Sam, can I get you to frame this up? How do I know when I've got a business model that stacks up? I've heard you and Greg and our analytics team talk about what it needs to achieve in a decile 2, decile 5, and then decile 8 year. Would you mind just sharing that again so that people know what aiming to measure up against?
Yeah, thanks, Hutch. So for what we would say would be a robust business model, the first hurdle that it needs to achieve is, in an average season, average prices. So everyone will say, well, what's an average season and what's average prices? So if you were to think about, what's sort of normal yields or normal production for the commodities that you produce, and decile 5 prices. So that means 50% of the prices are above and 50% of the prices are below in terms of observations over a 10 or 20 year period. Can you create a 30% net profit ratio? So the net profit ratio is the net profit, which is the income minus the direct costs minus the overhead costs, divided by the income. So it's a measure of profitability. And that tells us that we've got a reasonably robust business model. If we then stress test it again on a decile 2 price scenario, so that means 20% of the prices are below, and we look at those average yields again, Hutch, we want to see that you're at least breaking even from a net profit percentage. So they're the two kind of key hurdles. And similarly, you can look at it from a decile 2 season and average prices. It tends to be uncommon that you get both of those together.
So what that means, Sam, is that it's okay to break even or even experience a loss 1 or 2 years in 10 if I've got a sound business model.
Yes, provided, then it comes into the tactics of how do we minimise the loss in those seasons. But yes, for a lot of farm businesses, you will make a break even or a small loss at a net profit level in those lower price or lower yield environments. And so it's important to keep perspective on what's happening in this season. And remember that net profit doesn't include finance costs, so it doesn't include interest cover. Out of net profit, we've still got to pay interest and we've still got to pay any principal on loans. So there's still a little bit of work to do. That's the other thing that you want to look at in terms of your business, Hutch, is just making sure that we haven't overgeared it or we haven't created a situation where there's too much financial risk in the business. It has nothing to do with the quality of your business model. It just means that you've taken on too much debt.
Thanks, Sam. And that net profit figure's after paying ourselves a commercial wage. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. So just to give that to people again, in a decile 5 environment, we need to be generating a 30% net profit margin after owner's wage. And
correct.
And in a decile 2 environment or decile 2 price or season environment, we need to be breaking even after paying ourselves a commercial wage. And that's before debt servicing. So Sam, just building that out, if I'm in a decile 1 or decile 2 environment now, and I am trying to minimize losses and break even and just get through, I think a lot of people do start questioning and challenging their business model. If this is just one of those below average years and you're looking at a break even or a loss position, it doesn't mean that your business model is necessarily broken. Is that correct?
It doesn't, but I think it's always helpful to ask yourself, what could we do, or how could we change our business model so that it is more resilient? I think often, you don't want to let yourself off the hook in that respect. I would say, I think you've got to accept what is and what can happen. There is every chance that in that sort of situation, it's going to be really difficult to make money. And like, to use an example, Hutch, if you were to be a sheep producer on Kangaroo Island this year, we had the lowest rainfall ever on record. Sup feed bills are through the roof. Decile 1 or 2 wool prices and land prices have come back a bit. It's going to be very difficult for even a really good business to be profitable in that kind of season. So you've got to just accept that that's what it is, but you can learn a lot about some of the tactics you might implement or the way that you can manage your business to minimize that loss in those years. And that can give you a lot of confidence moving forwards, because what you can identify is a way to help your business, maximize the good times, but not be susceptible in the bad.
Just expanding this out a bit, Sam, I love the construct of drawing those three circles: business model, scale, and gearing. And just, would you mind just speaking to those? Because it could be that my business model is sound, but it's one of those other two circles that are holding my business back. Would you mind just speaking to those three constructs and how they interplay?
Yeah, so I think the natural tendency when prices are low like this, or the natural tendency where people go to, that I observe when we're helping, is when they're losing money or they're not happy with the financial results they get to, they instantly jump to, how do I cut costs or save costs? And it's the wrong equation to go to. So in the business model circle, Hutch, you're talking about here, often, most farming enterprises, you're making your profit comes from the last 20% of, or 20 or 30% of what you do. So whether that be area you crop, whether it be yield that you generate, whether it be DSCs that you run in your livestock. So, if you go instantly to cutting costs, what we tend to do is reduce the income generation potential of the business. And what we want to be is not a low cost producer, but a low cost of production producer. So we have a low cost per unit output. And, often those businesses are spending a little bit more on their inputs, so they'll have that little bit extra scale to spread their overheads out over more area. And that's what allows them to be a low cost of production producer, even if their costs are slightly higher. So I hope that makes sense in terms of interplay between business model and scale. So it's not always cut costs. It's sometimes invest a little bit more in the right areas to increase scale or increase our output, like the production that we're generating. That allows us to be a lower cost of production producer. And then if we were to think about the finance side, if you're running a business and it has no debt at all and it's got a sound business model, then, as we were saying, we should be generating a 30% net profit ratio. You get to keep all of that because you're not paying interest to anyone. If you've taken on interest, which most people have, to access land, and there's nothing wrong with debt in a farm business, then it's possible that you take on too much debt and the profit that's available in the business is just not enough to sustain the debt that you have. So in that circumstance, then you've kind of got two options. You either figure out how to reduce debt, or you figure out how to increase your profit, your net profit, or a combination of the both. And sometimes, once again, it might be that spending a bit more is the right answer rather than trying to sell productive assets to reduce debt.
How do I know if I've taken on too much debt, Sam?
You will feel it in your cash flow pretty quick, Hutch, from the movement. But once again, it's a finance cover ratio is the ratio in benchmarking that we use. So it's the number of times that your net profit covers your interest and land access costs. And for a high-performing business, we target a 3. So your net profit is 3 times your interest cost. When you've just taken an expansion step or in more challenging seasons, 1.5 times is reasonable. So your net profit covers your interest and land access costs 1.5 times, means that you get to keep 50% or 30% of that net profit, You pay 2/3 of it to the bank on interest, and 1/3 of it you get to keep to do other things. It gets pretty nasty when you start getting down to 1 or below 1. You're farming for the bank.
Thanks, Sam. And just to round out this conversation, how do we measure scale?
Yeah, so thanks, Hutch. Important conversation as well. So once again, it's not about hectares you run. It's not about the size of of the yield that you generate. Those sorts of things. How we measure scale is income. So the income you generate off of the area you run. And I think now more than ever, with where things have gone with input prices and that sort of thing, making sure that you're optimizing the scale of your enterprise, the hectares that you run is the most important thing. So you're not leaving any waste anywhere.
Thanks, Sam. And just again, to round this out, one of the things that I think is a real achievement for our business this year is the cash flow optimizer program that you've put together. It's a great budgeting learning tool that helps people stress test their business model through budgeting. Can you just speak to that and give people some insight as they move into resetting after Christmas and stress testing their business models and setting down their new budgets for their new season. Would you mind just speaking to the cash flow optimizer and how it might help them?
Yeah, so we really wanted to produce a tool that was simple for people to understand and they could follow along with and build a budget in a way that was meaningful for decision making in your business. I think a lot of the time we end up getting caught doing a budget for the bank or for someone else, and we're kind of trying to use their template and we put numbers in and it doesn't really kind of help us make great decisions in our business. So the cash flow optimizer tool is just a training you can follow along with, and the outcome is you build your own budget for your own business and you understand really those metrics that I was talking about, Hutch. You can calculate them for yourself. You know, we give you a method to work out whether it is your business model perhaps that is holding you back, you know, whether finance costs are too high in your business relative to your profitability. Start to kind of give you some things that you can think through around how you might be able to impact those different levers that you could pull in your business to improve your situation from where you're currently at.
We'll include details for that program in the show notes, team, but really encourage you to move through that training. It's concise, it's really practical, and you'll be able to apply what we've talked about so far in this podcast really strongly to your business for working through that program with your family. Sam, just to change gears a little bit, I wanted to give you a platform to acknowledge our team. And given that we've started talking about numbers and analysis, we've got a pretty incredible analytics team at FOA. And just as we round out and start wrapping up for harvest, how do you acknowledge what they've done with our members over the last 12 months?
It's been a massive year for our whole team. Hutch overall, but particularly our analytics team continues to grow. And I was chatting with Greg the other day. We've analysed something like 220 odd benchmarks in the last 2 months, including preparation for our alumni summit, where we had nearly 100 businesses working through a boardroom style open book benchmarking workshop for 2 days where they share their numbers and challenge each other on their business. Really, really interesting way to kind of coach and mastermind around business, Hutch, and analytics team were just key in kind of getting all that information together, but then also in running rooms at that alumni summit and sort of facilitating the conversations that needed to be had.
Thanks, Sam. What's the feedback our members give us on the back of their debrief around their benchmarks with our analytics team?
Yeah, it varies, I think. You know, some people are running great businesses and they get confidence out of the benchmarking process. They perhaps pick up 2 or 3 little tips that would help them even run a better business, and they've got more clarity on what's driving profit and production, and you know, they can use that as a great tool to set down some really meaningful actions for the next year. Others perhaps realise that their business model isn't going to get them towards their goals, and that sort of sets off a series of actions that need to happen to kind of find a business model that is going to achieve their goals. And we've had people that have, you know, as it can be as simple as 2 or 3 tweaks around the enterprise they're running that have them change their strategy a little bit and then achieve success. Or it can be that they decide that the enterprises they're running just aren't going to get them there and that they make changes completely into something different. So it's a big process, but I think what they all value is the debrief that comes from that with the analytics team for 2 to 5 hours, typically on strategy and on helping them understand what that benchmark's saying, and you know, really leaning into helping them find a business model that's going to be successful in the future.
Thanks, Sam. So to our analytics team, Heidi, Tim, Keith, Greg, Sam, who else have I forgotten?
That's it, mate. Yeah, no, thank you very much, team.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing what you've done in support of hundreds of farming families in our community, really helping them learn their numbers, understand their numbers, and ask great questions of their business through their numbers. Sam, just before we move off this one, sometimes I think benchmarking can be misunderstood. We've thrown that word around a bit in this conversation. It's not about comparing yourself to your neighbour. Would you mind just speaking to our perspective on what benchmarking is and why it's valuable?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, benchmarking is really a tool. It's a tool to help you run a better business, and it's a tool to help you find a business model that's going to achieve your goals. It's often not that helpful to compare it against others. I think the KPIs we talk about are really useful because they allow you to find really quickly where things are working and where things perhaps are out of whack in your business, and to kind of start digging into what might be going on. But at the end of the day, you farm on your farm, your soil is different, your set of conditions you face are different to everyone else. And so really what is most valuable about benchmarking is when you've been doing it for 3 to 5 years and you can start to look at trends and you're using it as a continuous improvement tool to measure how well you're going about moving towards the business model that's going to help you be successful. So that's how we would have people use it, and also really encourage our members to benchmark their budget or their forecast so that they can see that what they're planning to do next year is taking them towards their goals rather than waiting until the season's finished.
Thanks, Sam. I often use the analogy that I can't see my own golf swing, and it's not until I go and get a golf lesson that and get a few tips on the small changes I can make to improve my swing that everything can change on the golf course for me. A nice metaphor, I think, for what business coaching does. What's your comment, and how would you like to acknowledge our business coaching team?
Yeah, once again, this has been a really good year from our coaching team and led really strongly by Sam Pincott and coached by Tracy. And just the love they pour into our members, Hutch, I think is first class. And they have some pretty difficult conversations with people, helping them, range through family challenges, misalignment in families, helping people find their right seat within the team that really allows them to play to their strengths, to, going and getting the information in and figuring their business model out and their benchmark out and holding them accountable to that, and having our members get onto a strategic plan and get their goals and vision out on the table and get everyone kind of excited about and moving towards that. So, yeah, incredible group of people and really care a lot about the results that our community get, Hutch, and they're really at the cold face in terms of supporting our members to achieve their goals. And it's really gives me a buzz. I've just been on a client review meeting this afternoon, actually, where we work through all of our members and just how everyone's going. And it's very obvious how well our coaches are across those businesses and what's the next 2 or 3 things that are going to help them kind of really move the needle.
Thanks, Sam. You mentioned getting your vision and a clear plan on a page and then having your coach hold you accountable to that. Just out of interest, what impact do you see that having on those farming families that start with us and they're not aligned, that their plan is not on a page, that it's in someone's head and, they're not working to a common direction? What impact do you see getting that plan on the page and then having a coach hold families accountable have on bringing families together and perhaps even helping them set down foundations for a more meaningful succession over time?
It's just critical. I think that's the biggest challenge, I think, in family business, isn't it? Like, we all know each other really well, but often we just never have had a conversation at a level we need to kind of get clear on what everyone wants and whether we can structure the business up to achieve that. And, I think that clarity action plan process is just so powerful. And finally, you've got a single page that everyone agrees is where the business should go. And, there's just less chaos and less busyness going on because you're kind of really challenging yourself on, is that thing that we're working on moving us towards that goal or not? And if it's not, you can let go of a lot of the stuff that's just noise that happens around life and business, and it takes a lot of the stress out.
Thanks, Sam. One of the constructs that I see you bringing and speaking to often, and I think it's a new construct for farming, you challenge farmers often to decide early in their journey with us who's the CEO. Now, I struggle with this because my bias is that families are different. And to your point, as families live together, work together, is it practical to have someone be the CEO? But the more I get my head around this, the more I agree with you that it's just so important that someone is empowered to be the CEO and to make the key final decision on key moves and changes that are needed. Would you mind speaking to the importance for families to nominate a CEO and why you think that is so important?
Yeah, it's not just CEO. Like, I think it's role clarity the whole way through the business is what's important, and it's basic governance that exists in every business outside of family business. And it's what allows people to feel confident about what they are responsible for and to go and, feel empowered to go and grow and develop their part of the business. And so I think what happens when everyone's in charge, no one's in charge. And you kind of have this situation where things aren't quite going as well as they could or whatever. And then we're arguing about, who should have done it. And no one was really clear who should have done it to start with. And so my take on that is someone just needs to be the CEO and they're responsible. They're appointed by the owners. The owners are all level at an ownership level. And when we're having ownership discussions, that you have equal say. But in terms of as owners, you get to choose who the CEO is and appoint the CEO. And so that ownership group, it's a really important decision, I feel, as to who is going to be the CEO. And it needs consideration, and it might be okay that it's one person and then you discover that the skills are actually required. It better suits someone else in the business. But I think it's just important that at the start, someone is in charge.
One of the things I love about where we're off to with so many farming families across Australia and overseas, Sam, is seeing our women in agriculture put their hand up to be the CEO. And for the blokes who've tried to perhaps carry that and be that person for some time, willingly let go and they step into head of operations or whatever it is and allow their wives or daughter-in-laws or whoever it is, sisters, daughters, come into the business and take that real lead role. How do you reflect on what you see people turning up and really bringing their A game and being given that opportunity to take on real leadership roles? What impact do you see that having on farming families?
Yeah, I think I always just go to who's the best person for the role. It doesn't matter what gender or background or race or whatever you are. I just think, who's the best person for that role. If you define what the CEO is responsible for, often there's skills that have come in from outside the family that are come in via a partner into the business. A lot of those skills are the skills that are needed to be a really successful CEO, and particularly if that person's not out in the paddock doing a lot of the day-to-day work, often they have a different perspective and are viewing the business with a different perspective than people that are kind of in it. So, yeah, I think it's something I'm really proud of is our, the fact that we're 50 men and women in our community hutch, and our events are very diverse in that way. And I think we have a different conversation because of that, because it's really quite balanced in terms of the different perspectives that come in.
Thanks, Sam. So when we get our alumni together to debrief their benchmarks, we do that within the construct of a mastermind where we get small groups together to really challenge each other around the numbers, and great insights come from that, as you mentioned. Our coaching team hold our members accountable through that same construct. So people going through our 3-year journey do that with 5 other businesses, and they go through that as a mastermind group held accountable by a coach. Would you mind speaking to why it is that we do that? What is a mastermind? Why is it so important in support of making really strong and powerful business decisions?
I'll let you add to this as well, Hutch, because I think you do a great job of explaining a mastermind. But for me, accountability is enhanced when you're in a mastermind group. It's why we do it. You've got a coach, but when you have to show up 5 other businesses you respect and say to them, this is what I'm going to achieve next month, and then report back in a month later and say, how have you gone with that? You just don't have that kind of level of support and feedback when you're running a small business. Like, there really is no one holding you accountable. Like, you can let yourself off the hook and it can get a bit lonely. And similarly with when there's really challenging things going on, you've got a close group of people who really know and understand your situation and are there to just pour support into what it is that you're doing. And so I think that's really powerful. And we observe quite often is this sort of collective wisdom that is generated across the community and the broader mastermind of the Platinum Mastermind group. There's probably, I couldn't think of a problem that probably hasn't been solved by someone in our community that you could face in farm business ownership.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. One of my favourite books is Think and Grow Rich, and Napoleon Hill analysed the 100 most successful business minds of the last century. And in the book, knowingly or unknowingly, they were all part of a mastermind. And I love that construct, and he describes that when you get 5 people together and they are troubleshooting and focused on one common question or one problem, for one of the participants of the mastermind, then a mastermind is created. There's a higher intelligence that you get to tap that is the mastermind. And, how often do we see that a coach arrives and holds space and facilitates a conversation between 6 really capable, high-achieving farming families, and the outcomes that come from that, be it critiquing a benchmark or leaning in to support one of those members to bust through a key change or a key problem. The quality of the conversation is far greater than any one or two individuals could possibly have in isolation. Is that your assessment?
Completely agree, mate. I just think, I guess the premise of it is get a bunch of smart people in a room together and focus on one problem for a period of time. Your chance of getting a good outcome is really high compared to you trying to go it alone and figure it out yourself.
I love that comment, Sam. I think farming can be a very lonely place. I think when we're under the pump, I think we think we've got to go it alone and we can't reach out for help. Whereas being in a mastermind just gives you the opportunity to make sure that those constructs are very different and that you are supported to navigate tough decisions and supported to lean in and get help from others when you most need it. So I love the construct of a mastermind. So to our coaches who facilitate and lead those for our members, and as Sam said, for the great work that you do and the dedicated love and support that you provide so many farming families in our community, happy Christmas and thank you. Sam, we've been lucky enough this year to commit to our own mastermind as a business coaching firm supporting farming families. It turns out that there's hundreds of other business coaching firms doing similar things to us in other industries for vets and accountants and financial planners and builders and other industries. How good has it been this year for us to find a mastermind group that we can participate in, lean into and learn from?
It's just been massive, Hutch. I think it's reinforced for us the power of what we're doing. I think it's always nice. We've always had a coach and we've always been coached, and it's been nice to go and immerse ourselves in a coaching program that's with other businesses of similar type. And I think that's what is reinforced to me how good the Farm Owners Academy Mastermind piece is. I'm inspired every time we walk into that room. There's businesses that are doing different things to us, and we're just learning so many things. And often there's nothing wrong with our business. It's a good business. There's a lot of 1, 2, 3% that we can go and pick up and implement straight away that are just really invaluable, and very grateful to be part of that group.
I agree, mate. It reminds me that business is never done, and even when you're on top of your game, there's always 100 small improvements you can make. As for any elite sportsman or elite team, just to continue to improve. And I come away from the masterminds that we've been lucky enough to be part of, Sam, overseas this year with 20 or 30 or 40 little 1%ers that we can make as a business to make sure we're turning up and doing a wonderful job and adding value to the industry that we support. It's incredible when you surround yourself in high performers who are open to sharing and open to supporting, just how many new insights and how many small innovations you can uncover for constant and ongoing improvement.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that's really been really valuable is just being able to tap into what's working. Like, you've got a group of people who are trying to figure out the same things you're trying to figure out and deal with the same conditions, economic business conditions you're trying to deal with. And so when you kind of come across an issue, you can just ask a question and someone's already probably figured it out beforehand. And there's been a number of those already where we've just been able to kind of really shortcut the process of getting to the right answer.
Sam, our support and events team, the engine room of FOA, often don't get acknowledged, perhaps like the rest of us, but do an incredible job making sure that our events and our coaching and analytics team are supported really strongly in our collective efforts. What would you say to our operations and events teams?
Yeah, once again, just unsung heroes. I think, Hutch, as you say, they quietly achieve at the back of the room and make sure that the business keeps ticking over and that everyone has what they need, and continue to challenge us and the way we deliver, and to provide a better service for our clients, and also for the information they provide back into the business. So very grateful for what each of you do, and And one of the things that's been cool is FOA's been able to grow. Hutch is just being able to have everyone sort of be able to become more specialised in their role and focus on the things they enjoy most and that give them energy and that they're really good at. So that's been sort of probably the journey over the last few years, is that sort of support team have been able to really develop their own areas of specialisation, and rather than being a jack of all trades, have been able to focus and own a part of the business that they can grow and succeed in.
We're going to wrap up before Christmas and make sure everyone gets a real break, Sam. What are you most excited about the break that's coming for you and your family, given the year that you've had, and what are you most looking forward to about 2025?
Yeah, good question, Hutch. I'm hopefully going to get the boat in the water and do a bit of fishing. So I haven't done as much of that this year as I would have liked. We have had a challenging year. I wrote a blog about this earlier, but my wife, Talia, was diagnosed with a brain tumour before Christmas last year. Thankfully, it was benign, and thankfully she's had surgery on that about 2 or 3 months ago now and is recovering really well. So I'm just so grateful that our dreams have come through as in terms of how that has gone. And yeah, so I'm very grateful for all the support that the team's provided this year, Hutch, to allow me to step out for 2 months and focus on family, and the fact that business is able to run without me here is a credit to everyone. And yeah, so just for us, it's going to be time with family and a bit of fishing, mate, for Christmas break. And for next year, what am I excited about? All of the exciting members that we haven't yet met, that aren't working with us yet, the new people we're going to meet and are going to become part of our community. I really love everyone who comes in, and what they bring to the community is also really valuable. And also just continuing to watch our team grow and develop, and our members continue to achieve the results they're setting down in their business. That for me gives me everything I need. I get super pumped by watching that. And what I'm most proud of every year is those graduation ceremonies where people walk up and they just look confident and completely different to when they started with us, and they know where they're going in their business. They are more aligned and feel happier as a family group, and they just seem lighter and generally more excited about where they're off to. So that's for me more of the same, mate.
Perfect.
What about you?
Thanks, mate. I'll speak on behalf of the team that we're just so delighted that Talia and your family have come through that challenge just as strongly as you have. It's great to know Talia made it to the Coldplay concert the other day, and that she's back near her A game, which is just wonderful news. So congratulations on that. And likewise, mate, just those graduation ceremonies and just seeing what our members are achieving, for leaning in and really committing to coaching and analysing their business and leaning into their masterminds and setting down plans and really going after growth. It is amazing to see what our members are achieving. So thank you and congratulations to all of you who are really committed to our support and to your success. I can't wait to see more of that. And just for everyone's benefit, as we move into 2025, we're excited to have 2 top producers events, one in February and one in June. I think we've already got over 100 businesses registered for that February one. So get on and register for that. I can share details in the show notes. It's a wonderful introductory 2 days to the journey that people come on with us for getting business coaching support. We'll have 2 or 3 intakes into our 3-year Platinum Mastermind program following those 2 events. So in March and July, and then perhaps another one in October next year. So encourage you all, if you're keen to learn more about our 3-year Platinum Mastermind program and getting our business coaching teams and our analytics teams support, you can book in for a coaching call with one of our business coaches. I'll share details for that in the show notes. We'd love to chat with you and make sure that you're a fit for our program and community, and that we feel like we can add value to you in 2025. Sam, one other thing that I'd love to check in with is we have in the past handed out a document to our members called Finish the Year Before It Starts. I do this every year to reflect on the year that was and to set down some and refresh personal goals and some personal disciplines going into the new year. We've rebadged it and we're going to share it more broadly. Would you mind speaking to that resource? And again, I can share some details with that.
Yeah, thanks, Hutch. So we've called it, I think, the Ultimate Planning Guide for 2025. So it is a really good resource. why is it so important? Most people set down a New Year's resolution. If you get to sort of the 15th of January, only 5% of people are still actually making progress towards their New Year's resolution. And I'm sure those who are listening have all kind of had that feeling where, like last year, kind of you get to the end of this year and it feels a lot like last year and the year before. And you might be trying a few different things, but you're kind of like not really feeling like you're getting a different result. And what this process does is have you stop and reflect and work through in a structured way to really meaningfully change next year. And our hope is that by working through this, that you make 2025 your best year yet, not just for your business, but for your life. And there's a whole heap of questions in there that have you really stop and think critically about what is and isn't working in your life and your business, and give you some tools to think through how you might change that.
Can actually be a really cool document to do with your partner and other business owner team. So you've brought a family to do with your teenage and other kids, but also to share with your farm team if they're open to it, to actually do the same thing so that everyone can arrive into your new year having worked through that similar reflection and planning process. Would you agree, Sam?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, we do. It does get you to think individually, and I would encourage people to do it individually and then share, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're here to try and live the life we want to live, and our business should be set up to support us to achieve the goals we have in our life and to support that. So, if everyone works through that process and is clear on their goals, and then you sit down and do some business planning that has you think about how can we achieve those things for everyone in our family and our business. Can we structure the business up to achieve those things? Then I think it becomes a much more meaningful exercise.
I agree. Sam, have you got a tip for people as they wrap up this year and reload for 2024?
Yeah.
What's your business tip for them?
Business tip: reset and recharge. Like, I think you can't underestimate the power of a break. And I think even challenge yourself to book in more breaks next year than you perhaps feel comfortable with. So use this holiday to set 2 or 3 meaningful breaks for yourself next year so that you do kind of reset throughout the year, would be my number one tip, Hutch. And the second one would be just get out of the environment you're in day to day and do that planning exercise in a different environment. I think it's Einstein that said you can't solve a problem in the environment it was created in. So, I like to go somewhere that is quiet, and generally you get a bit of elevation helps you kind of, you just move into a different perspective. So that would be my tips.
Perfect, mate. I think we're arriving to about episode 158 or something on the podcast. I think Robbo did the first 25 or thereabouts, and I've sort of hosted the rest. It's wonderful to arrive to there. It's just a real privilege to do this. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for being such loyal and committed followers to the Profitable Farmer podcast. It's a real privilege for me to speak to some incredible people. I reflect back on this year, recently speaking to Tim McGavin and Liam Lenigan, Cameron Schwab, an elite AFL leadership coach, so many farming families, Nuffield scholars, friends and others, but just real privilege to interview people doing incredible things across our industry and interviewing people outside our industry to share things that can come in and hopefully add value. I'm keen to hear from many of you. If you've got people in 2025 and 2026 that you think we should be interviewing, that you think would be great guests to have on Profitable Farmer podcast, I'm going to share in the PS of the show notes an email that you can use just to let us know, send us a bit of background on someone in our community doing incredible things, or someone outside our industry who you think farming families would get value hearing from and learning from. Sam, do you have anything to add there?
Oh, Hutch, I think it's a wonderful resource, this podcast, and the caliber of the guests you get on are inspiring. And mate, I just wanted to say thank you to you for the way you lead the conversation and the quality of the podcast that has been put together. And, what we get told time and time again is that people have been following this podcast for a long period of time, and they've been making changes in their business on the back of that. And it is having a real impact. So well done, mate, on what you've been achieving.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate it. It is a real privilege to lead. And a final thanks, if I could, is to the podcast team. Michaela, Georgia, Lulai, John, you just do such a great job getting this podcast to a very high standard and consistently getting it out to our community in a shape and form that really does add value. So thank you, team, for your support to Profitable Farmer Podcast. From our whole team, thank you, everyone, for listening. To our members, thank you so much for your loyal commitment to our community and for all of the value you add to our FOA family. Have a wonderful holiday, everyone. Make sure, as Sam said, you take time to reflect and re-energize, get off farm and make sure you do recharge, and then get off farm again for that day or two to lock in some time for planning to set up your year. And we hope you enjoy that resource that we shared, Ultimate Planning Guide for 2025. Encourage you to go through that yourself and with other key decision makers in your business and anyone else you feel to share it with. Hey, happy Christmas, everyone. Thank you for tracking with us. We look forward to connecting again in the new year. Sam, a final comment?
Hutch, I just think there's a huge amount of opportunity in the ag space at the moment. I think people kind of feeling like there might be a little bit of turmoil and a little bit of chaos. For those who are organised and those who are prepared, there is a lot of opportunity out there at the moment and for next year, and that's what I'm excited about with our members, is helping them capitalise on that opportunity. So, yeah, be positive about ag. It's a great space to be. I think there's a lot to like about what's going on, and, there's some great people working in this industry. So that's my final reflection, mate.
Great comment, Sam. Thanks for your leadership this year. It's been a cracking year for our team and our community, and really appreciate the way that you've led the team and continue to drive our business forward and support our community.
Thanks, Hutch. Appreciate it.
Take care, everyone. Happy Christmas and speak soon. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Profitable Farmer Podcast by Farm Owners Academy. If you're new to this show, be sure to follow us. If you've been a long-time listener, let your friends know about us or come continue the conversation in the Profitable Farmer Facebook group. All the best as you grow your business and create your freedom farm. Until next time, keep being incredible.